When 23-year-old Asha failed to check in from her carefully planned Utah solo hiking trip, her father knew something terrible had happened to his independent daughter. Search teams scoured miles of wilderness for weeks, but found absolutely nothing. It was as if she'd stepped between the trees and simply ceased to exist. Then, 6 years later, a hobby fisherman spotted a flash of yellow deep beneath the surface of a lake, something heavy and waterlogged that didn't belong there. But what was wrapped inside left investigators staring at evidence that simply didn't add up. For the first 3 days, the silence from the Utah wilderness was expected, welcomed even. It was a testament to his daughter's success, a sign that Asha Badori was finally immersed in the solitude she had craved for so long. At 23, Asha was a meticulous planner, a cartographer of her own ambitions. Her 2-week solo trek through the Uinta-Wasatch National Forest wasn't a whim. The mountains kept their cool, even when the valley boiled. In the summer of 2012, heat pressed down upon Pine Hollow in a way that felt suffocating, almost personal. Asphalt buckled in places, windows stuck in their frames, tempers frayed without cause. But just a few miles outside of town, past the gas stations and diner plates fogged with grease, the pines waited in patience. Their shadows were rich, their air different, like another world altogether. It was there that Marissa Hale turned off her car and shouldered her worn hiking pack. She adjusted the straps until they sat neatly against her shoulders and took a small leather-bound journal from the passenger seat. Her pen scratched across the lined paper, the words heavy, her hand pressing too hard, as though trying to cut them into permanence. I love Ethan, but sometimes I feel like I'm losing myself. I need space. I need air. Out here, the silence doesn't ask me to explain myself. The words felt like a final declaration, as if the trees themselves would witness her choice. She zipped the journal back into the front pocket of her pack, tightened the sleeves of her red jacket around her wrists, and started toward the trail. Locals had their sayings: don't hike alone, don't hike late, don't forget that bears and men both wander the mountains at dusk. But independence had always been more than a trait for Marissa. It was a fire that lived inside her. She burned with it. And though Ethan Cole's love was the kind many girls might have clung to, steady, watching, always wanting her near, Marissa longed for contradiction. She wanted to disappear into the trees without asking permission or forgiveness. The trail consumed her quickly. Clouds of dust lifted with each boot step. Cicadas drummed and birds erupted through branches as she climbed toward the ridge, the town shrinking behind her. The quiet was better company than Ethan's accusations or the sideways glances of neighbors who liked to gossip about her choices. Hours later, sweat clinging to her hairline, she reached a lookout where the world spread below her. Green rolled against green, stitched by rivers of silver light. She sat to eat a granola bar, finally feeling at peace, until her phone buzzed. One message from Ethan. "Call me. We need to talk." Her stomach tightened. She remembered his voice the night before, sharp with jealousy. "You think I don't see the way you look at people?" She trembled, replying, "I just want to be myself without explaining every breath." Now alone in the mountains, she whispered, "I just needed one weekend, just one." She tucked the phone back into her pack. She didn't call, she didn't text. The sun slid low like molten bronze between the peaks. The shadows lengthened and she pressed deeper. The pines loomed larger. Every so often, a crunch echoed behind her, too heavy for her own steps. She spun at one point, clutching the straps of her pack, calling into the stillness. "Hello?" Silence. Only wind. Marissa tried to laugh, insisted aloud that it was probably just a deer, but her pace quickened until she reached a clearing by a stream. She knelt to cup the cool water in her palms. For a brief moment, the world softened again. Then, the whistle came. 3 sharp notes, deliberate, from across the stream. Her head snapped up. "Who's there?" No answer. Her chest tightened, but stubbornness carried her through. "You're fine. You're not scared. Not tonight," she muttered. She set up her tent, her red jacket catching last scraps of light. When darkness finished swallowing the sky, she lay awake listening. Twice, she swore she heard crunches outside. Once, another whistle. Her phone lit up again with Ethan's name and request after request for her to answer. She ignored them all. By dawn, she was gone. The search began almost instantly. The bright beacon of that red jacket was the first thing every volunteer remembered, though none ever found it. Locals whispered about bears. Others muttered darker suspicions. Hunters, drifters, men who wanted what wasn't theirs. Ethan was questioned immediately. Detectives watched him carefully across the steel table, his shirt wrinkled, eyes red, not with tears, but with something uncertain, exhaustion, paranoia, or guilt. He said she needed space before they even asked. He repeated the phrase 3 times, as though by rote. When Alvarez, lead detective, pressed further, "Where were you that night?" Ethan claimed he had stayed home, watched a game, called his brother. It was an alibi lined with hesitation. His brother was called to confirm. He fumbled. "Yeah, sure, he was home." It didn't sound convincing. Meanwhile, neighbors whispered about the fights. Voices through thin duplex walls, doors slamming with bone-shaking violence. One said, "She was trying to get away. He wouldn't let her." Sophie Lane, Marissa's best friend, muttered to officers privately. They were toxic. She wanted to leave him. He wouldn't let go. But no body, no proof, no weapon appeared. The forest held its silence, its vastness swallowing evidence before it could be recognized. Search dogs lost her scent by the stream. Volunteers tied yellow ribbons around trees. Candlelight vigils lined the streets. Ethan stood amidst them, his voice cracking, cameras feasting on him. "Please, bring her home. She's my everything." But away from the cameras, his eyes stayed dry, his jaw too tight. His grief looked rehearsed, neighbors whispered. Then, storms swept through the valley, rains that washed away prints, branches, every trace. The ground hit reset, as though conspiring with the pines to hide her. Rumors devoured the silence. At diners, voices clashed. "She was reckless. Don't you dare blame her. He did it, I'm sure." Every shred of trust in Pine Hollow rotted under suspicion. And then, detectives found Ethan's phone records. Multiple late-night calls, not to his brother, not to his family, but to Sophie Lane, Marissa's best friend. When called in, Sophie admitted, voice trembling, that she and Ethan had grown close. He said he didn't know what to do, that he couldn't reach Marissa. He needed me. She trailed off, her hands twisting in her lap. "Were you involved?" Ruiz asked. "No," she snapped, too quickly. "We just talked." But her story cracked. Eventually, quietly, she admitted,
Yes, she'd fallen into something with him, a weakness fueled by adrenaline and secrecy. She also admitted something else. The night Marissa vanished, Ethan had left her apartment for an hour. When he returned, his shirt was damp, wrinkled, his arms scratched. She had asked him where he'd been. "Don't," he told her, "don't ever ask about tonight." Her words threw gasoline on old suspicions. Marissa's mother wept when she heard it, calling it the worst betrayal. Her father called Ethan a killer outright. Townspeople divided further. Ethan's supporters swore Sophie lied for attention. Others branded her complicit. Then Sophie disappeared. She missed interviews. Her house sat empty, mailbox overflowing. It looked too much like flight. Years passed. The hail split under the weight of grief. Ruth clung to candles. Daniel clung to rage, barking at every press conference. Ethan remarried quietly.